All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Trail Network podcast. I'm Hilary Yang, and today I sat down with Katie Asmuth, and we talked about all things Black Canyon's 100K, 50K race weekend, which just went down this past weekend in Arizona. Katie ran the 100K, and while she was going for a golden ticket and trying to shoot her shot, the day did not go according to plan. However, I feel like we were able to really dissect the race and understand where it went wrong and pull out a lot of things that hopefully you guys will find applicable to your own races. I know I certainly did, especially when we got into the weeds with talking about nutrition, gear, just like all the fueling, all the things that can go wrong, and how also we can reframe our days when they don't go according to plan. Our motto coming out of the race, and Katie's motto, was to stay curious, which I absolutely love. And I feel like that's like my next tattoo idea, you guys, is just stay curious, because I feel like that's the most important thing we can do when we're tackling these races. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you learn a lot from it and stay curious.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Trail Network podcast. This is one of your hosts, Katie Asmuth, and today I am joined by Hilary Yang. We have a lot to debrief about Black Canyon Ultras this past weekend. It was quite the weekend, and it was really fun to see you there, Hilary. How are you feeling?
Oh my God.
How is the travel back?
Oh my God, Katie, it has been a weekend. I'm like, what day is it? Where am I? It's been busy, and we'll get into everything that we were up to, because there was lots of moving parts with this whole weekend. But I was just saying before we hit record, and then I thought we should probably just talk about this on air. Yesterday ended up being kind of a hilarious day. So originally we were supposed to come back from Black Canyon on Sunday, but then we realized it was a Super Bowl in the afternoon, and Billy is just like the most rabid, like all sports fans. Like, doesn't matter whether it's baseball or basketball or football. So I never get a break because we go from one to the other. I mean, it's great. It's
You're
wonderful.
An amazing
Anyways,
wife. Great. You're
like
rolling your eyes.
I'll make sure I tell him that. Yeah. I'm like, I know nothing about any of these. I grew up with hockey, but anyways, so of course we had to stay for the Super Bowl. So we did a little party on Sunday, and then drove back yesterday. And then Billy decided while we were on our drive back that he had too much FOMO about missing the Lakers game last night. So the Lakers, whatever, we're just going to do sports for like 30 seconds and then we'll move on from the ball sports. But the Lakers got this guy, Luka Doncic, who's apparently amazing and like a once in a lifetime guy. And he made his debut last night on the Lakers, and Billy just felt like he had to be there. Like, this was the moment. This is the day that everyone will talk about. Where were you on the day that Luka made his debut? I don't know. History will tell us if this is true or not. But he bought tickets while we were in the car on our way back. We got back from Arizona at like 4:00. And then by 4:30, we were like out the door on our way to like crypto.com arena downtown LA to watch the game. I was like laughing. I came in, I was sort of grubby, been in the car all day, like slapped on some makeup, like threw on my LA Dodgers hat, which makes me look like I know about sports, and like threw on a pair of cute shoes.
LA, so like it worked.
Totally. I'm like, cute. I look great. This is great. Went downtown, had some Mexican food and a margarita, and I was like, let's do this. But it was really fun, actually. They had like put like a t-shirt like with his number and his name on every chair in the whole arena. So like we walked in there and like everybody got this jersey. And Billy told me normally like people in LA are too cool to wear the shirts, but like everybody was into it and everybody was wearing them. Also, like the shirts were one size, they were XL only, which I was like, I don't know what this says about the state of the state, but like,
right.
Here we are.
That's so like average.
Like, yeah, it was like a dress on me. I just like tied it up in the back. I was like, cute outfit is gone, but we're in the game. Anyways, it was just like super fun. And honestly, it was really fun to be there and just be around like all these people kind of in the moment, celebrating the moment. But we got home super late. It was like 11:30 at night, which is like 12:30 in Arizona. And my body's like, who are you? My Oura ring is so upset at me over the last few days. I like, it's just red across the board. But, you know, at some point, I feel like you can sleep later. It's really fun to be able to embrace these moments. And, like life is great. And I'm super like appreciative of all these things. So
Carpe
we just
diem,
packed it all
Hilary.
in. Yeah,
Just went for it.
seriously.
Okay, so did Luca
I
perform?
know.
Was it a good
He
game?
did. It was actually really sweet. And like everybody cheered every time he touched the ball. Like he came out to warm up and people were cheering. It was like
Aw.
kind of cute. He's like 25. He's a baby. I know. And he's just like this like sweet kind of like no pudgy face. Like I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate any of that, but
But did he play
really like just
well?
so young. He did play really well. I think he was a little rusty because he's been injured for a while, but they're just like they played a great game of basketball and it was like a great team game. I feel like he didn't make it the Lucas show. Like he was doing a lot of like passing to everyone else. And I was like, that's how you make friends, Like he could have come out and just been like, I'm gonna sink every basket and never pass to anybody. So it was like fun to be part of. And I actually love seeing other sports worlds and
Wait, there's other sports besides trail running? Is that
No, I know.
Is that real?
I personally am not invested in them, but for Billy, it must be an exhausting life because he just goes from one to the other.
Oh my gosh, so funny. I love that you did that.
It was fun. It was good. So yeah, anyways, I'm happy to be here. And now I feel like I have to like pull back into my memory bank all the way to Friday and Saturday and sort of a lot has happened, Katie. And how are you? When did you get home?
I got home Sunday afternoon, which was kind of a bummer because I really wanted to go cheer on the 50K, but the boys skied. I had a ski racing comp in Tahoe, and so they went with another family, and so it was really fun.
Aww.
We landed in Reno and then intercepted them, so we got the ride home with them, and we got to hear all about it.
Can I just say that's like masterclass parenting because you and Pete were like out at Black Canyon, like you're in it, Pete's crewing you, and then you guys fly into Reno, go to Tahoe, find your kids, cheer them on. Didn't one of your kids win? I think I saw a photo or like
Liam, my 7-year-old, he turns 8 on Thursday, right? Liam is such a shredder. I mean, he was competing with the U10s, but they made a U8 division because there was, I don't know, like 7 kids or something. So not very many kids in his U8 division. And he destroyed. So if anybody's listening, knows slalom ski racing, which I knew nothing about before I threw myself in, but it's, fast racing down a ski slope. And he beat the other kids by like 16 seconds. I mean, usually it's like half a second. And this is like just absolutely crazy. And then one of the runs that he did, he actually beat all the 77 U10 kids except for one. So he got second place.
Oh my God.
Against all the U10
kids. He's a prodigy.
And this is Tahoe and Mammoth. It's not like these are, these are shredders. Anyways, so, we need to work on his ego a little bit.
Yeah. You're like, okay, buddy, you're not always going to be riding the top.
Enjoy this. Not really. I don't really tell him that. That would be kind of mean. But, in my mind, I'm thinking it like we need to bring this kid down. But anyway, it's very fun. They're living their best lives. And honestly, for other parents out there, I think the most beautiful part of all of it is that my 10-year-old, well, he's about to turn 10, my 9-year-old is getting sometimes beats Liam, but most of the time doesn't. And it's really cute the way he just supports his brother. And he's like, yeah, Liam's killing it. And Noah's a really, really good athlete. And, he's always destroying it for the Mammoth team, but like Liam is just next level. So it's really nice that he doesn't get jealous about it. So I think that's really sweet. And I don't know, I feel like it's really good in our lives right now. But we're very into sports, it turns out, over here.
Yeah. Also covering a plethora of sports.
Yeah, just sports. Yep. And I will say, I think I've said this on the pod before, but when we got in the car with the kids after their weekend and the kids come running to me like, it's okay, Mom. We still love you,
Oh my gosh.
And Noah looks at me and he goes, Mom, you know what we say? That's sports. It's really cute because he came up with this a while ago, but it was so cute because he's like, they get it. Like they get you can't always win and they get that you're going to have rough days and it's okay. We moved on, and you can't just dwell on it.
Good perspective there.
Yeah.
Especially because they're not in it. It's not like they're not hanging everything on it. They still love you. You're still mom. You're still cool.
Right.
Like it's sort of like, Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
You know.
it's fine. It's really fun. Yeah. So
Aw,
anyways, that's sports. Highs and lows,
sports.
baby. Yeah.
Oh
Anyway.
man. Okay, well, I saw you Friday at Race Check-In, which was fun and all the things and first time in your fun new Hoka kit and I mean, how was that? Because like for you, big switch to the Hoka team and obviously Black Canyon's a Hoka race and there's all the Hoka things and like, I feel like this is sort of a new chapter for you when you're like in it with this like brand that's like everywhere in trail right now and lots of teammates, lots of hype, lots of like, where do you find that distracted? And do you find that like cool? Like, how was that sort of experience of being like now part of that big tidal wave of blue and wings?
Yeah, I don't feel that much different from a like personally. Like I didn't feel extra pressure. I just feel more support. And like all of us that are in trail running, you just see Hoka everywhere anyway. So it's kind of like we're all riding this Hoka wave, whether you're on the team or not. So I feel like I've
Yeah.
worked with Hoka a ton anyway. So it didn't feel like I know all of the people at Hoka, like the Hoka athletes are my friends. It doesn't feel like this crazy new world. Of course, there's been changes, and we talked about this on the pod, but like the system changes of trying to understand the gear, the shoes, like what works best, what, that sort of stuff. That's been a change. And generally kind of the players that you need to talk to within Hoka, like who can I talk to about X, Y, or Z? So that's been super fun. And I actually really like the behind the scenes of that. And yeah, I think it's been awesome. I don't know. No pressure, no weirdness. I mean, I've been signed for a while, so the announcement came the week before, but it was like we all knew. It wasn't like, all of a sudden for me a big change. And yeah, it was very fun. I will say, I think this sport comes with any sport. There's some irrational ego, right? To show up to a start line, to show up to a game, a comp, whatever, you have to believe in yourself, right? And we all say that, like, you got to shoot your shot. And when I decided to race Black Canyons, I was like, it's going to be awesome. Like, I'm getting this ticket. I didn't have a doubt in my mind. I was like, I feel fit. I'm ready. I'm with Hoka. This is such a great comeback. I got this. And it's really interesting now after the fact going like, why did I think that so strongly? Like, what? I mean,
like self-belief is great, Katie, but like at some point, right?
Like it just, and I think it's a good kind of wake up call for me. I'll just speak for myself, but I mean, so as the people on the pod, I haven't really posted about this on Instagram, but I mean, I stepped down from my nurse practitioner role in December, and that was really, really impactful for me. I've never not worked before. Though I'd like to say that this is work also, but in a different way. But going all in, right? Like I got a nutritionist for the first time. I'm seeing a sports psych. I'm like all in, like, let's go. And this is just a small power pause in my medicine career because I love medicine, but like, let's just do the thing. Like I've been injured for, 20 months. I wasn't running. And then before that there was, so it's just the idea of like, give yourself a chance. This is super fun. But I didn't really start building until probably mid-December, like really, like training hard. And then of course it's the holidays and the travel and all that. So like maybe even you could argue like January is when my training started looking really good. And so I kind of laugh at myself.
Wasn't
like,
that long ago?
What was I thinking? Yeah. Like really 6 weeks, Katie, of good training, you think you can get a ticket? And so I didn't think of it that way in the time, but it is a little bit funny looking back going, wow, I just didn't have the time to put in what you need to put in. And, my splits, everything seemed like I was really fit, but then I'm out there going like, I just don't have the pop that I need to be able to throw down with this field. And then of course it spiraled with a bunch of GI and a blister that we can get to. But even from the get-go, it was like, oh wow. you know? So anyway, I'm bruised, but I'm not broken. And hell, I am so happy. My foot is 100%, like zero niggles, you know?
Yeah. That's the
Which is
hugest
huge.
thing.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Barilla wants you to stay active this winter with its great tasting protein plus pasta. It's the pasta taste you love with energy you want. When I'm crafting my workout routine, I'm always looking to find ways to increase protein, and this is one of them, with 17 grams of protein per 3.5 ounce serving. Put your energy to the test and take on Barilla's Protein Plus Pasta's Winter Energy Challenge this February on the Strava Fitness app. It's free, and all you need to do is simply complete 10 days of movement for your Barilla Protein Plus Pasta reward. Terms and conditions apply. Sign up at strava.com/Barilla. Back to the show.
I mean, it's so interesting, all of it, Katie, and I'm like super excited for this little pod of ours and like getting to dive into it all. And, I was running around on Saturday covering basically the golden ticket race for Western States and trying to like get content of who that was going to be. And of course, that was just like chaos because there was so many people going for it. And like, I remember the first like aid station or two, I was just like spray and pray shooting, just like hoping I was capturing the person that was going to eventually end up on the podium because I had no friggin' idea.
Totally.
Like, it's like 20 deep on both sides, just a conga line of like people coming through. So wild. So like from a competition standpoint, just like I've never seen anything deeper. I think it's interesting just talking about your mindset going in, and like in hindsight, you can look at the fact that you really only had like a good 6-week training build. But like, I think mentally, because you have so many years in the sport and because you're so like, we talk about the sport, you're in it, like even when you're injured, we're podcasting, we're doing all these things, like you almost kind of forget like how much time it takes to build the foundation and to like create the like base to be able to support this performance. I think about it too, because I think sometimes in recent years I've disappointed myself with my race results, but then I think about how I used to train and how much more time I would train. And I just have to be really honest with myself and sort of be like, oh, like just because mentally you understand it and just because mentally like you're there for it and you want to have a good race doesn't mean you deserve a good race or you get a good race. And like, it shows, right? Like, I mean, there's nothing more honest than showing up at a start line and like your day's going to play out. I mean, there's things that derail our day that are out of our control, but like those bricks, that building, that just like base, like who am I as a runner and where am I right now in my running? Like you can't fake it. It's just like, I just think that's kind of interesting, right?
And it's not like I was faking it. I think that's what's even scarier is that I am such a genuine, like, I'm showing up and I'm ready to throw down. And then I wasn't even close. Like I was like,
but like,
so I think
but
that
in hindsight,
hard.
you realize it's like maybe the base that's needed has changed too as the sport's changed, right? Like it's like, it's more that it's not like you didn't think you were ready. I know to your soul you thought you were ready. And I think like even looking at your training, like you're so strong, you're such a good athlete, you put your heart and soul into all your training. But it's just like in the last few years, like how much has changed and where it is now. Like you can't even look at previous course records and be like, I'm going to target that pace and that's going to put me on the podium, because Riley blew the women's course record out of the water by almost 30 minutes.
And like, Rachel's talked about this, right? Like that's what she did at Western States. She's looking down at her watch going, I'm hitting splits. I should be here. I'm being smart. And I kind of did the same thing, even though I learned from Rachel. So this is just for our listeners. Maybe the more times we hear it and the more times we say it, it will actually sink in. But I was doing that. I looked at my watch and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I mean, the first mile was a 6:14 pace. I was like, that feels good, And then I was like, okay, look at my heart rate, which I've never used heart rate in a race before, ever, in training either, which is crazy. I mean, there's so many new things. We could go down the list of all the new things I did. But anyway, and I'm like, oh, wow, like 163 is way too high for 100K. This is crazy. So then I back off and then it was like, whoomph, and I just got swallowed up by like, there are 20 people. And I was like, whoa. It was just kind of wild. And then I kind of took a moment and was like, it's okay, Katie, you know what you're doing. You're a veteran out there. You know how to run your own race. They cannot sustain this pace for 100K. And then I was out. I was out of contention, So I think that's what's hard is that this sport and the kind of the how we talk about it, run your race, don't play somebody else's game. If you're wanting to compete, you have to just play the game, and you might blow up, but that's the risk that you have to take. And I look at the podium and I'm like, I look at the people that were up in the front runners. I'm like, I know I can compete there. I know I can. I need more time to get there. But it was definitely humbling for sure. And then, so that's kind of how it started. I mean, I sent you my splits, Hill, and I was like, these seem pretty decent. Like, that's a solid way to start. The first 12 miles, I'm like, I feel like I was 8 minutes under course record pace. That felt pretty good. And I was like 22nd.
Yeah.
Like, what? So that just is hard to kind of wrap your head around. Yeah.
Like when I saw you at Bumblebee, you were like, you were sitting in maybe like 10th, 12th, like somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was so fast, but like 10th to 15th,
sure.
let's say. But like you were so comfortable and you're like, I'm doing great. I'm in a great mood. I feel great. My pace is good. I'm like locked in, like we're on plan. But I could see there's like that flicker in your brain that was a little bit like, but why am I like where I am in the pack when everything is according to plan and we're like even ahead of plan,
Yeah,
like,
I'm like, when you hear that you're 8 minutes, I was going off Rachel's splits and I was like, if I'm 8 minutes off Rachel's splits, who was 2 minutes off the course record last year, I was like, that feels really good, and now looking back, those first 12 miles, she was running in mud and snow, right? Like I needed to go out harder, but anyway, so there's a lot of that. And I think it's important to talk about because yes, of course, there was a ton of GI stuff out there too, which is a whole nother part of the story. But I think the thing that stings the most was that it wasn't the uncontrollables or like the GI, the blister, like we can talk about it, but it was really that I was never in it, and I think that's the thing that stings the most where you're just like, oh crap, and everybody says, oh, like the sport's different. It's so much faster, all these things. And of course, all these records are going down and it's blazing fast. But when you're in it, you're like, oh, okay.
But just to play devil's advocate for a minute, because I thought Joe McConaughey on the men's side had a really interesting race. First of all, like, sorry, we're just sort of jumping all over the place, guys, but like you can go and there's a million ways to check out all the Black Canyons coverage to see like how it all played out as far as who got the spots. But I want to pick out Joe McConaughey's performance on the men's side because he came in third place. He got a golden ticket. This was his like 8th race, he said, that he's tried to get a golden ticket at. Couple things that stood out to me. First of all, when I was photographing the race, he was nowhere near the top like pack of guys. Until like the last couple aid stations, I want to say. And so he was actually hanging back a little bit and he was letting people play out. He was still in it. He was still running a really good race. But there is such a balance with like not blowing up because we did see a ton of blow ups happen out there. Right. And like riding that wire is so hard to do. And that's why it's very challenging to nail it, right? Like you can't just say go with the front person and then hang on because they might be totally, like you said, running way too fast, not able to keep it. So Joe was an example of like executing a race that was within his control and then just getting faster and faster and picking people off until he came into third. But the other thing I thought was really interesting was that he said he for once finally held the race like loosely and held the result loosely. And he just like ran with his heart. And he said in the past, it was like just all about the result of getting the golden ticket. And I just thought that was really kind of a good reminder, like especially the golden ticket races when there's like, feels like there's a lot at stake. There's only a few of them. Like there's kind of these like limited chances to get this result that you want. And it was like, wow, it took him 8 golden ticket races to realize that if I just hold it loosely and I run my day and I run a really good day and I, then things might come together and I might get that. And I think that's the hardest thing in the entire world to do, to want something really bad and to care about it really bad and then to hold it loosely.
Big time. I mean, I think that probably nails it on the head in the sense for me, when I came back, I was like, I took the whole plane ride home was just kind of eating myself up. Like, what can I do to get way faster? Like, I need to get way faster now. Like, we don't have time if I'm going to try and compete with the best this year. And then it kind of dawned on me where you can't you can't, that's not how fitness works. I trust my coach. I trust myself. I know I'm a really hard worker. I know I'm talented. And also it takes time to get there. And I just need to put those building blocks back together out of respect for myself, out of respect for the sport and my competitors. It's the luck of the draw sometimes. And you just can't hold on so tight to it because it is fleeting. I mean, I think I was talking to you about this a bit, but I keep having this image of a hamster wheel. And I was talking to Rod about this too. It's like you get this Western States hamster wheel, but you just kind of want to keep it going. You don't want to get off that hamster wheel because once you're in it, you just want to keep it going. And it's like this weird, sick drug because it's this omnipresent desire for the cougar. And being a part of states is such a big draw. And I'm off the hamster wheel, right? And now it feels like I'm in that, like when you're like double Dutch or jump rope, and you're trying to like jump in.
Trying to
like,
jump in.
Let's go, and you're kind of trying to figure out your timing and trying to figure out, the luck, I guess, to get in. But it's so much more than luck. But there's part of that. But I feel that way where I'm just trying to feel like I want to jump back in. And then it's like for the hamster wheel, like, is that the point of this sport, is just jump back in, And I think I've learned a lot in the last couple of years while being injured that, like, what's your why? Is it just to get back on that hamster wheel, just to get back into states and to be a part of that? It's like, there's so much more that we gain from this sport, the growth personally, and, the connections that you come along the way, the challenges that you are overcome. Like, all of this is so much deeper than just getting back on that hamster wheel. And it feels as if I needed Black Canyon to kind of get a little slap in the face to be like, wake up. It's not that easy to jump back on that hamster wheel. And maybe the hamster wheel is not what it's all about, right? It's about the love of the game. It's about, racing with your heart. It's about the people along the way. And don't get me wrong, I want to be on the hamster wheel, but I want to do it from like a way that the hamster wheel, knowing that never, like, it will end, and you just don't want it to ever be disappointing. Like, Pete and I were talking, like, this has to be fun. This has to be fun. We can't come home and be like, just sad and frustrated and looking at the rest of the year going like, all right, what's this mean for the rest of the season? And all this stuff. It's like, man, we've been through so darn much to be able to get to just towing a line. Like, we got to have fun with this and we got to enjoy it. But I definitely feel humbled. I feel like, I learned a ton. And I think there's some kind of amateur moves I made out there, to be honest.
Okay, well, I want to talk about this. Let's get in the weeds. But first of all, to Katie, I just thought that was very beautifully expressed, and I think it's always important to reflect on that why and keep it as a North Star. And I think the results follow the why always.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that little reminder that, like, yes, it's cool, and yes, it'd be amazing. It would have been an incredible story if you jump back into your first race in 20 months and
got it,
come away with a golden ticket.
Kind of a
here
miracle.
We go. Kind of, yeah. I was there for it. I believed in you, Katie. I was like, it's happening. But I think just like, in reflection, coming back to, like, you ran a race where you were happy every time I saw you. You were celebrating being out there. Your foot didn't bother you. You haven't come away from this with issues that aren't solvable. Like, that is a huge win with a capital W. And also just like knowing, like, when it was time to, like, call your day, and like just like the humility that takes, and the, like, just all of it. I think just want to give you a little kudos for kind of being able to accept the weekend and also recognize, like, some of the lessons that were learned, even though they're not the ones that we wanted to learn.
Right. Totally. And it's true. I was really happy. Like, I was really happy, though.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
My gut definitely went south. I mean, I was like we don't need to get into details of that, but I was having a
All the
hard
details,
time
Katie.
getting coverage under those cacti. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, where's the tree cover, people?
Look the other way. What are you looking at?
I'm like, go. But honestly, like Rod and I had so much fun out there. We were super positive. Rod Farvard was my pacer. And
yeah. Okay. So walk us through, like you pick Rod up and sort of like you're having a great day. You're maybe not as far up as you think you are, but like when did things start to shift? When did Rod join you? I did a great little like clip with Rod at Bumblebee where I was asking him about his hype strategy for you. And he was promising me he was going to sing you Beyonce, All My Single Ladies the whole way to the finish. So I don't know if that happened, but like I did have that on tape from him.
Oh man, we need to bring that out. Thank you, Osprey, for sponsoring this episode of the show. Osprey packs are known for being durable, sustainable, and comfortable. I've been seeing a ton of Duro and Dyna trail running hydration packs on the trail, and I'm sure you have too. I also have to rave about my new favorite luggage, the Daylight Carry-On Travel Pack 44 liter. It is the biggest carry-on allowed on an airplane, and wow, have I been amazed at the amount of gear that this can carry. It's shocking. You can use it as a duffel or a backpack, which is super handy, and it has 2 stretch water bottle pockets, which I love. An open suitcase style with full zip opening. Honestly, it's the perfect travel bag for those on the go. The Daylight Carry-On Travel Pack 44 liter. Try it out at osprey.com or check on the Pack Finder link to find the perfect pack for you. Yeah. Right. So I picked him up. I was definitely feeling really hot when I got to Bumblebee in the sense of like just felt dry and thirsty, which is unusual for me. I had 5 bottles in 13 miles. So I guess 7 bottles in 19.1 miles. That felt like a lot. Like I'm working with a nutritionist, right? So we were changing some things up. And I did not rely on aid stations for my fluid for the first time. Like obviously besides crew points, but I brought flasks with powder in them because I was like, I want to make sure exactly what I'm getting. That was Vic Johnson, who I'm working with. And he's like, but again, I've only been working with him since January. So I'm giving him all this credit and I'm like, and then had a bad race. And he's like, wait, we haven't even scratched the surface. Like this was a kind of a trial to see how it all would work out. Though you can practice on training runs, but it's only so much. And anyway, so I remember feeling dry coming into Bumblebee at mile 19.1. I pick up Rod and we're like, let's freaking go. And then there's a climb coming out of Bumblebee. And it was that like GI, like, I'm going to explode. Like, this is going to be embarrassing. And like, I was like, Rod. So I had to stop and like do that. And then that just like didn't end. And then I was like burping. I never actually threw up, but like, wanted to. And so I just had a hard time keeping anything down. So then that's hard because you're like, can't keep down carbs. And I was just trying to understand why, really like everything seemed dialed, seemed like how I train. And I don't know what went down. So we have lots to explore there. I have a meeting with Vic today, to try and dive in, but, one of the things, and maybe this is a part of it, I'm just going to be really honest about it. I've never raced with bicarb. I mean, I'm trying to do what all the cool kids are doing, right, guys? Like I'm doing bicarb. I'm trying to do it. I mean, I've used it like maybe 5 or 6 times in training and it never upset my stomach. It was never a problem. And I'm like, maybe it was too much sodium and then I was more thirsty and I needed more water. I don't know, but I'm not racing with it anymore for an ultra at least. I'm like, that was dumb. Like, I think I threw too many new variables into this race and I needed a race that was kind of a rust buster. Like this was quite a like public forum for a rust buster.
Right.
I'm like doing all the new things.
Wasn't planning on it being a rust buster.
Well, kind of never got to kind of learn about all this new stuff that I was doing. So that was a bummer for sure. But honestly, Rod and I got through it. Like I was still moving well because I can run on fumes. Like I ran 40 miles at Western States in 2022 without any calories, 40 miles. And I had a broken foot. and I got 9th place. Like, I don't quit. Like, I fight, and I'm like, I go deep, and I love this about the sport. And I was like, that definitely fueled me, where I was like, I'm fine. I will get through this. It will be okay. And then we just kind of changed goals. We decided, all right, we're going for top 10. And at that point, I was probably like in 15th or something. But I saw Abby on an out and back, and she looked really strong. And I was like, we can get there. Like, I'm still moving. Sure, I'm not taking anything down. But we talked to Vic on the trail, and he's like, just turn to water and SIS beta because it has really low sodium. Because we were like, is this too much sodium? What's going on? So I started doing that. And by mile around 40, I started actually feeling a little better. I hadn't had an explosion of my insides for like a couple miles and was keeping down water. So that was massive. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's go. We're going to run ourselves into the top 10. I'm not going to get a ticket, but we're going to have one hell of a day, and it's going to be fun. It didn't even cross my mind to DNF, to be honest. It didn't even cross my mind. It never has ever. And then we're running. It was like around mile 45. And I had told Rod maybe a mile prior, I was like, dude, I have a really bad blister from these orthotics that I raced, that I trained in. And we talked about this on the podcast. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Remember my story about my orthotics? Like baby skin? Yes, on the inside of your foot.
And I thought it was healed because I've been training on it, and it's been healed. And honestly, I always tape my feet because it's healing skin. I'm not an idiot. And you know how I like to tape my feet. And I taped my feet. My feet were like dialed, and I could feel the blister while I was racing, but like, whatever, like that blister's not going to take me out. I'll tell you. Well, then I stepped on a rock weird, and it just sheared off that top layer, where then it was just this like raw oozing red. And I was like, uh-oh, like now I can't even shuffle. Like, this is like, I'm not going to be able to do this.
This is so painful.
Yeah. So then I was kind of walking on the lateral side of my foot for a couple miles, and I was like, dude, Rod, this isn't good. And we got to the 47 mile aid station. Oh, and during that time we saw Tim, and we were like, oh man, we're like, don't sleep on the east side, except sometimes it's okay.
Next time.
Except this one time and never again. But anyway, so we ended up getting right out of there. A very, very bumpy ride.
I saw you post about that, and it sounded like a fun little ride out, at least.
I'm like sitting on all this stuff from the aid station, like all this gear and stuff, you know, and like we're all crammed into this truck. I actually lost my sunglasses that I just bought, which I'm kind of bummed about. But dude, man, the Brian who drove us out of there, bless his heart, he was so amazing. Anyway, so that was really like a journey, and I tried to walk out of that aid station to get to Table Mesa, which would have been a 5-mile walk. And I made it about 20 yards. And I was like, I can't do this. This is bad.
Well, you could hurt yourself by like putting all that weight on the outside of your leg. Like that's your whole calf. That's like the chain of command. You know
like,
that, right? Like, dumb. It's
like really, like,
yeah.
Once I was like running well again and felt like I was getting down fluids and some calories, I was like, oh dude, we're going to finish hard. And this is going to be an epic finish. And I'm going to destroy myself to get there. I'm not getting a ticket. It's okay. I accepted that, but I was going to fight for every place. And I was super pumped on that. And then this happened, and I was like, damn it, you know, and that's okay. And I, honestly, it's fine. Like the DNF happened, but it won't happen again. Like unless something like this happens where it's really out of your control. Like it wasn't ever a decision. At that point, it was like, I can't even make it 20 yards, you know? So
well, and especially with all of your issues with your foot, I think it's important to recognize you spent so much time trying to be healthy and have the ability to like have healthy feet.
Yeah.
And so I think when it's something foot related, it's like you get an extra pass for just wanting to like make sure that you're not creating more damage again. Yeah. You know, like I think that's
and
okay.
I wanted to say like I played the pro card, and kind of that was my first take on it. And I was like, it wasn't playing the pro card in the sense of like not making it to the finish line. It was that, yes, I didn't want to screw up something else, and to hobble in for 15 miles on my lateral foot sounds really dumb. Like that is, I guess, the pro card. Like if this was my only race of the year and it meant everything to me to just get to the finish line, sure. Could I have done it? Sure. And could I have been injured for like the next 6 months? Probably. Right. So it's just like not worth it. But So I'm actually not that bummed about the DNF, to be honest, like, which sounds weird. Because I know whatever, like that was just dumb. I'm more like, very humbled by the competition and feeling like I need more time and kind of back to the drawing board. Like, yeah, but also lots of pinch me moments. Like, I'm here, guys. I told Tony at the Sony, I was like, I feel like I'm dreaming. And he's like, you're acting like you're dreaming. I'm like, shut up. He's like, wake up. I'm like, I'm trying, God. But yeah, it was definitely very surreal. It feels really good to be back at it. And just the beginning, like, we'll see what the rest of the year goes. I just know that I'm not a quitter. So that's a no-brainer for me. And that's fine.
Katie, like, I have no doubt you are going to take all of this and absorb it.
I'm not spiraling.
Like whether it's chasing another golden ticket, whether it's sort of like thinking about the bigger picture of all the bricks that you want to build, like whatever it is, I know that you're going to like come back, and learn from it all and grow from it all, which is like the only thing we can ever ask from a DNF, is that you take all that and build.
I will, just to end my story, I care so deeply about the people competing out there. Oh my gosh. I had so many amazing interactions at that finish line. Cause of course I had to go right to the finish line to be like, what happened?
Good for you.
And Lin Chen wasn't on the tracker. And so I thought it was Abby and Shay throwdown. I don't know if you saw that for the golden ticket. Anyway. So it was really fun to be at that finish line, and man, I just love finish lines. But afterwards, talking to Abby about like, this was her UTMB. I mean, she came back and she's like, I'm trained all year for UTMB. And it was not even close to what I know I'm capable of. And it was just like my first take back after being injured. And sometimes it just takes longer and you just forget. And you believe in yourself so much that you want it to work. But Riley had a really cool response. I sent Riley a note yesterday and was like, I hope you're floating, whatever. You're such a badass. And Riley's response was like, not holding on too tight to results. Like, my life's happy no matter what. And I was like, of course I kind of got all teary eyed. Like, you're such a freaking champion, like really cool. And it is what this sport's all about, that it really isn't about the results. It's about the effort and the personal growth to get there. And really cool when you get that result. Anyway, good times.
That is, I mean, I love that from Riley. I think, honestly, at the end of the day, being able to zoom out and to remember that the results are one part of it, but like, it's not going to define you. Even if you got on the hamster wheel and you get the golden ticket and you win Western States and all these things, like, you're still Katie, you still have kids, you still have all the stuff. And it's like, just sort of reminding ourselves like, okay, we care a lot, but life keeps going on, right?
Like
there'll be other goals.
Like, hang your hat on results. Back to what String Bean said, right? It's like, you got to run with heart. That's what it's all about. And
hold it loosely, run with heart. Okay, I wanted to dive into a little bit of the gear side. I saw some people with handhelds. I saw some people with waist belts. I saw some people with packs. What was your strategy there?
Yeah, cool. So I was really happy to have practiced a lot with my vests before. I did do vest swaps, and then I had a waist belt. And then I also had some shorts that had pockets of them that I never touched. Well, I actually ended up touching them because I added more tape to my blister. So it was kind of my like emergency pocket, which was really nice. So I'm sure you out there, did you see a bunch of shorts that didn't have waistbands on them? Because I feel like that's more and more.
Yes, I have thoughts on all of this. First of all, with waistband belts, I don't know about you, this is just a super side note, and then we'll talk about shorts, but do you feel like it makes you have to pee when you have things in a waist belt around your waist? Because I've had races where I'm like, I don't understand, for women especially, like, it's right on my bladder. It feels like I don't want things that are like pushy right on my bladder. That's just like my side note on waist belts. I kind of love them, but I also have days where I'm just like, I feel like I need to pee more.
Yeah. Well, for me sometimes too, it's like when you're like, I was nauseous and bloated, and so it just was pressing really hard, and that sucked. But that's the only way I could carry all my flasks. So I needed it.
Yeah.
and it was worth it. But yeah, it wasn't entirely comfortable when you're not feeling great.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's super distended. Yeah.
Totally. Your stomach's already crappy. But yeah, no, like definitely interesting to see what people are wearing. You know, I want to give a little plug for John G, who is one of our sponsors for the podcast, but I definitely saw their shorts being used out there. I know Scott Traer, Callie Vinson are both John G athletes, and Scott was racing Black Canyon's 100K, and he was wearing what looked like the 5-inch John G short, the multi short. And that is a short that I also love because it has 5 pockets and like very bounce free, super lightweight. The no chafe seams, I feel like that is extra important, especially with a race like Black Canyon. Yeah, so that was just sort of interesting to see some of the gear that was being worn, especially in the hot temps, and how much that matters. But like, honestly, having the pockets in the John G shorts is pretty amazing. Also, John G stands behind their gear 100%, and they have a 5-year guarantee on all their products, which is pretty amazing. You can get 10% off your order with the code Trail Network. So little plug for John G, little shout out for shorts with pockets, because we love shorts with pockets.
I just think also brands stepping up to trail focused gear is so cool. And yeah, I definitely think there's no going back, like supporting these businesses that really care about our sport and think really deeply about what you need while you're out on an ultra is just really, really cool. And the people behind John G are awesome. So yeah, definitely big shout out there.
Yeah, that was fun. Kyla, their marketing director, was out crewing for Scott, and her and Callie had these like green sparkly cowboy hats on, and she had this like denim jacket with a fringe, and just like, man, I love the vibes. I do love like the vibes of these races are just so much fun. And okay, so moving on from, I guess, some of the gear stuff and just like looking at the race in general, I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, speaking of just like going out with the pack, seeing who blows up, just like how it all played out. It was like, from a standpoint of just like being back in it, Katie, but also seeing like people just freaking go for it and having no idea whether it's going to work out, and then seeing some like spectacular blow ups. Like, it's wild, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
and you know what's funny is because I feel like we spent a couple of years going like nobody blows up anymore, right? But I now feel like the pendulum has swung where it's so fast that if you don't take that risk, then you're not going to be in it. So you have to take the risk, and then you might blow up. And I think like Tim did that, where he's like, I got to hang with these young guns if I'm going to try and go for it. And he didn't, pull it off, but he's like, I tried, and that's cool.
Like last year he ran 10th? I think he was 11th actually last year. But his comment afterwards was that he should have gone a little faster. He should have pushed a little harder. And so you can't blame him for coming out this year and being like, I'm going to go a little harder. I'm going to push a little more. And it's just very difficult. And yeah, I thought that's a good point that you made about how we kind of celebrate the fact that like everyone's got their crap dialed. Everyone's like, no one's blowing up. Everyone knows how to do these things.
It's so much.
No, it is complicated because there is always that pushing of the envelope. And like, I mean, even watching Mary Denham go out, and she led right from the start. She meant business. And, everyone knows who she is. They know she's a fast runner, that she's like super talented. I thought like maybe she'd run the first 50K really fast and then get to the second 50K and it would be too technical. And that's where it would sort of trip her up. Because like seeing Heather Jackson come into the sport, like she definitely struggled on more technical stuff. It's sort of been interesting to see people come into trail and where they kind of have to figure things out. But it was like kind of before that, I feel like.
It was way before that.
Yeah, she didn't get to the technical stuff before her day was over, which really is just like, that was interesting.
Yeah, she dropped before Bumblebee, or at least I saw her on the trail walking, and she's like cheering on the runners, and everybody's like, what are you doing? Like, what happened?
Was it Bumblebee or Deep Canyon? I think it was Deep Canyon.
Okay, well, I was definitely not with Rod. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it was between
somewhere between there,
because I pick him up at Deep Canyon. So maybe it was between that section. Okay. Yeah.
Because that's the aid station I was sitting at, where that's the halfway mark. And that's where people were coming in, and I was like, wait a minute, like, where's Mary? Like, she just didn't show up. And you feel bad because like she worked really hard to get there, but also like that's not even halfway into the race, like.
So, okay. because now I'm trying to be more of a student of the sport, and I've always been a student, but now I'm like understanding data, and I'm really trying to dive in and like understand things more than just go off feel, right? So I used heart rate for the first time, and Pete and I looked back at people's heart rates because we were curious. Like, I was scared of a 163 heart rate, and I'm like,
was this all on Strava that you're finding all this?
On Strava.
Yeah,
and I go back and I'm like, I'm so
great.
curious, right? I mean, it's all public data. Like, if people look at it, they wouldn't post it, right? So I was like, oh, that feels really high for me. I mean, that's like zone 5 for me. And, but you know, Mary and I are the same age. Like, we have the same, more or less, right? Ish heart rate. But she's like a solid 10 beats over what I was. I mean, she's like in the 170s. And it was really interesting to see that, because clearly didn't slow her down. And you can't be going off data. You got to just go off competition. But yeah, it's interesting because talking to her after the fact at the finish line, she was like, hey, yeah, I was totally fit for that. Had nothing to do with my fitness. It was all because of this weird like equilibrium thing, and felt really dizzy and that sort of thing, which is kind of how I've felt in the past with electrolyte imbalances. But anyway, it was interesting looking back on the heart rate data going like, but can you hold that? Like, can you hold like mid 170s for how long before your body's like chill, you know? So it's definitely a risk that people are taking. I mean, I would love to see Riley's heart rate data. Maybe I should reach out to them and ask because I'm just curious. But I mean, clearly people nailed it, right? And so you can go out really
But were
hot.
they just running with a 170 the whole time and like that was cool? Like, or were they able to like, they were fit enough that their heart rate was lower? Like, what was it?
That's right.
That is really fascinating. And I'm someone that doesn't really run with data. I run by feel.
Yeah, I'm done with data.
You know, and I'm always like
conversational
pace, whatever.
Hilary, no more data, no more heart rate. I'm so done. I'm like, back to my roots, baby.
That was a short-lived experiment.
Anyway, yeah. So it's super interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. No, and I mean, just like so many people had days that were different than what I expected. Like Heather Jackson too. Like, she went out hard. She already had her golden ticket, so she was. I mean, you could say she really was there for the right reasons. She was there for the competition and just to like play it out. She didn't have any skin in the game with that part of it. And she was hanging like right at the front until at least after the halfway mark, I think towards Table Mesa and the latter half of the race. But somewhere along the line, the wheels fell off the bus. And I want, like, to Heather's credit, I think she's an amazing competitor, but she's also a great and gracious athlete when things don't go well. And I've seen her definitely finish races like in a much different place than she would want to. You know, like she was, I think, quite a bit slower than last year's race, finished 9:45. But like, she always seems to finish with a smile. And even if it's sometimes like a rueful, like, well, that didn't go according to plan, you know, but like, I do just like side note, I think it's cool to see like if possible. And I think there's so many, like we talked about with you, like it didn't make sense for you to finish. It wasn't the smart move. But I think it's like always good to have the conversation of like whether it's our ego or whether it's like actual like physical reasons why we shouldn't finish. And I thought it was like good for her. You know, it's not hard to march in there. It's not easy.
Like, she's done this for so long. Like, that woman has competed with the best in the world for decades. And so I think she's kind of in this like, well, didn't work out, kind of holds on lightly. Because she knows she's a badass. And I think there is this kind of maturity there where you're like, yeah, I really care. It's #cool to care. And this doesn't affect my self-value at all. Like, I'm still Heather freaking Jackson, you know? And, and I definitely take inspiration there, and I really care, but it also feels good to see that. And I think there's like, it's okay to really fight and want it. And I think if you keep fighting, you can do well in this sport. But it is tough. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who used to be a pro cyclist he's like, I used to race 70 times a year. And I'd try different tactics. I'd try different nutrition. I would throw myself into one thing or do something else a different way. And like, it all didn't matter because it was like just trying to figure it out, and conditions change, et cetera. And you just kind of hold on loosely because you race so much. And it's tough for this sport because we have like, 4 races a year, right? And they're all your A races.
You can't do 70 races.
Right?
You will die.
Yeah. So it's just hard because you kind of put all your eggs in one basket or a couple baskets and like all the eyes are on you and you're just like, man, it's tough to not nail it. So I think there is something about like racing more and just being able to take it a little bit like lighter and maybe shorter distances, but just to practice that, practice your nutrition, practice your pace. And yeah, I think there's something valuable there to just not hold on so tight and to run with your heart.
It's so true. Yeah. I used to do that. I used to do a lot more just like shorter races and sort of like use them as a learning thing. And then somewhere along the line, my ego started to tell me that I could only do these races if I was going to do well, because I didn't want people thinking I wasn't fast because I wasn't racing my full potential. And somewhere along the line, like you kind of are your own worst enemy with like always wanting every race to feel like an A race, even though it shouldn't.
You got to let it go, people. Culture's changing now. We got to let the ego go. Yeah. And we're always going to give our best, whatever that day is. And we all know that about ourselves. So
it's so funny. Just like the whole sport itself. I was chatting with Jeff Colks. He ran the 50K. I hope he doesn't mind me telling the story. But, like he ended up coming in, I think like 8th or 9th in the race. And I know it wasn't the day he wanted. And he was a little frustrated afterwards. And he's like, man, I'm getting all these text messages from people who are like, hey man, like great job on the rust buster. And he's like, what if it wasn't supposed to be a rust buster? Like
same Jeff, same buddy.
Yeah. You're like, I mean, thanks for the reframing, you guys, but like TBH,
Yeah, it is all in the reframing of it funny. For sure.
You're like, okay, fine. I guess I accept this was a rust buster.
Totally. I gotta call him. Yeah, we can mourn together. No, the point is we're not mourning and we're moving on.
Yes, we are accepting and acknowledging and learning from our results. And something else I was thinking about too, Katie, again, chatting with Joe Stringbean at the finish line, that guy is just like full of these nuggets of wisdom. Maybe when you do long races, you have lots of time to think, turns out. But we were talking about the fact that he finally got a golden ticket after like 8 races and all these years of trying. And I got into Hard Rock this year because he was asking about what I'm doing this year. And I was like, oh, turns out I'm actually going to be a runner again. I'm actually I'm doing a race. And I had this moment, I looked at him and I was like, that whole thing of like holding it loosely. I was like, it's actually really hard to do when you finally get into the race that you've worked so many years to do. And I'm totally going to have to practice what I preach because it does feel a little bit like it's your one shot. Don't screw it up, and it's really hard. Like for him getting the golden ticket, it's like, oh my gosh, I finally go to Western States. I finally get to do the thing that I've worked so many years to do. And then you're going to do everything in your power to make it the most incredible day ever. But that could also result in overtraining, burnout, all these mistakes that you make on race day because you care so much that you're trying to do everything all at once. I mean, you could even argue for you, Katie, like trying out a nutrition strategy, looking at the data for your heart rate stuff.
Oh, the list
like
goes
you're
on.
Caring
I started
so
eating
much.
red meat again because my iron was low. So I was like, I haven't eaten red meat in
Fritos
20
the day
years.
before.
Like what? I completely changed my life because I was like, I'm going all in. And then it was like, that was the worst result I've ever had. Like, what the heck? So I think we do just need to take a step back sometimes and be like, I don't know, do what you can do. I mean, it is hard when you have Rod as a buddy who's like really into the data. And so he's like constantly telling me things that I should try.
And it worked for Rod, right? Like, I mean, he had a freaking amazing day. It's hard not to look at that and be like, okay, well, maybe that works for me. But even the like 90 grams of carbs an hour, I am not great with like my nutrition. This is something I really need to work on for Hard Rock is my nutrition. Yeah. Billy and I have been talking about that. I'm like, frick, I go on strike. I am like the worst person in the world if I'm not feeling well or if I get nauseous. I'm just like, sort of like you. I'll do the whole thing on freaking water and fumes and like, I don't know why. I need to totally work on this. But that said, if I go out there and I try to even practice with the 90 grams of carbs per hour, I feel so sick and so awful and I don't feel good.
Then.
No, but like everyone says to do it. And so again, it's just sort of like, okay, how do I listen to like the data? How do I listen to all these people that know what they're talking about, telling me how much I should be eating an hour? And then how do I interpret that for what actually works for me? And the answer is just practice. And that's something that I need to do more of in my training runs. I think, like you said, signing up for these shorter races where we're just like in an environment where we practice these things with less consequence, but like putting less pressure on ourselves to hit these kind of arbitrary targets, that it's sort of like a one size fits all, like this should work for you, this should be enough, I don't understand why this isn't working for you. And it's like, well, it isn't,
right.
you know.
Well, hard rock's gonna be interesting too, because you have the altitude on top of it and the length of the race. So it adds so many more different variables, which is just harder to train for, right? So, and it's going in knowing that there's going to be probably things that work, and it's going to be really hard. I mean, Courtney can't nail that race from a nutrition standpoint. Like, it's really hard.
We've talked about that. She's never had a perfect nutrition race out there. And I think she knows there's more on the table if she could nail that. And I'm like, you live in Leadville. I live in LA. Like, oh my God.
But it's back to like, you can't compare yourself, right? I think, right? Comparison's the thief of joy, and comparing ourselves in that way. But I do think, well, okay, I started using something called the H drop, not sponsored. Okay.
What is that?
H drop. Look it up. Google it. It's not cheap. It's like $200, but it was been valuable to me because I've been wearing it on every race. I mean, every training run, excuse me. I didn't wear it during the race because I didn't bring my phone with me, but, and it tells you after you finish your run, it tells you the amount of fluid you lost and the amount of sodium you lost. So you can really dial it in. You start to see these trends, like based on the weather and the humidity that day. And then I did do some of the like way before, way after, trying to understand if it was accurate, like all this stuff. Cause I've gotten a sweat test before, like this was in 2021. And anyways, Vic, the nutritionist, was like, it needs to be while you're moving. Like this little like sweat test from Precision Hydration back in the day wasn't enough. It wasn't accurate, and compared to what my data is now. So it's just been really interesting because I like to learn about myself. Like there's something there invaluable about continuing to understand and be a detective about what works for you and what doesn't. And I do think if you nail it, like Tara and Riley nailed their nutrition, and if you can nail it, then that unlocks so many doors, right? And if you don't, then you keep kind of like not being able to be your best self, right? Like your full potential is never unlocked. And I will say out there, even though I do high carb, it's like, I'm taking carbs, I'm taking in so much hydration. And I think that's a big part of that. People are like, I can't do high carb. But if you take in high carb, you have to have the hydration to go along with it, which is really heavy, right? So do we want to do that? But
there's so much peeing.
It's so much peeing. But, and so it's just kind of an interesting kind of way to think about the sport. I like it. It's interesting. And turns out I've had better results when I didn't think about any of it. So,
which is funny because like Katie, the nurse practitioner, it's so easy for you to like put your science hat on and to be like, I understand this on a science level. This makes sense to me. And then to be like, but on a like Katie level, like how does this translate to like me and in the moment?
Yeah.
I saw a great photo of Tara in her like little recap she posted, or she's like literally standing at the aid station with the full like bottle of Coke, the big like liter bottle, just chugging it. Which I'm like, that's aggressive. I wonder if they decarbonated that before she started chugging
like that. Probably
like,
wasn't a part of her plan. Maybe not to like chug it like that. Maybe it was.
Like, literally just like drink this thing. And then I think about like the best race that I ever had. It was Fat Dog 70 miler, and I ended up winning, and I didn't even know I'd won till after the race, and it was like this super exciting race, and I felt like I actually got nutrition. Like for the first time in my life, I had enough calories in my body, and I was like, this is what it's like to not run on Coke and watermelon. And it played out, and it was great. But I drank Starbucks Frappuccino drinks for some reason. That slapped.
Dude, that's your hard rock fuel.
I drank like 8 of those, and I even made my crew go to a gas station and get me more. And it was a hot race in August, and I was drinking essentially chocolate milk with caffeine in it. And I've never done that before, and it just tasted so good, and it worked out so well. And so I'm kind of thinking like, it's interesting to have all this data. It's interesting to be able to play with like all these like Morton and Precision and all these things. It's a good thing we don't have a nutrition sponsor for the pod, by the way. But like, this is our honest opinion, everybody. At the end of the day, you never quite know what's going to work. And sometimes you have to be able to pivot. And sometimes it's just calories. Like you get in what you can get in. We have a buddy that ran the 100K. And, his nutrition was so good all day. And at one point at Table Mesa, he had a bottle of maple syrup. He just casually took the lid off and he starts glugging from the maple syrup bottle. And I was in awe. I was like, oh
Wait,
my
was
God.
he
And
Canadian?
then he washed it down
that's the best photo
no,
ever.
but he was from like back east,
Okay.
which is also like, I was impressed as a Canadian. I was like, I tip my hat to you, sir. And you like washed it down with some potato soup and off you went. And I was like, I am a changed woman. Like,
wow.
But like, I just think it's really interesting. And I think in some ways it's frustrating because we want to have the answers. We want to be able to like, say, if you do this, it all works out. But it doesn't work like that. And I think it's really is like practice and also having an arsenal and being able to like draw on all of that and being willing to stop and troubleshoot if things aren't working out.
And not spiraling. I think that's probably the most important thing is to think of it, to be curious while you're out there, like, like you're an outside observer looking in, going like, this isn't working. Interesting. Like, and just kind of thinking of it as it's not your fault. It's not your training. It's not like, oh, I should have done this. And like you can spiral so quickly. And that's not the freaking point. Like, let's just, we got to have fun with it. And if you just take off the self-doubt and the self-worth and the like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, it's like, that's not helpful, right? Instead, put on the curious hat and think about what can I do different in this moment to help me continue to move forward.
I love that. Put on the curious hat. That is like, that's actually my motto for a lot of races is stay curious. And I think more than anything else, that helps me remember, like, if something goes wrong, why are we so surprised when something goes wrong in a race? Like, why are we shocked by that? Why do we think that everything's going to go so well? And then we're like thrown for a loop when it doesn't, like how silly of us.
Right. Totally.
And yeah, just like being able to stop and go, no, like this is what we're here for. We're going to troubleshoot. We're going to try another way. We're not going to leave the aid station on absolutely no fuel and think that we can just will our way to the finish. And like, I think in some ways, the fact that you were able to do that for Western States is a bit of a disservice to you as a Katie, the athlete, because you don't know that you could repeat that. That was sort of lucky that you were able to just like go that far.
I sure as heck wouldn't get top 10 this year. I mean, like in the sense that I think my time that year was like 18:20 or something, right? Like that's not a top 10 anymore, right? I got lucky. It was 9th that year. And that's never happening again. Like you can't just not have calories for 40 miles. So yeah, in 2 years, the sport has, or 3, I guess, the sport has really changed. And, but it's back to, you can continue to fight, but you have to problem solve on like fix the problem while you're out there as best to your ability. And you can keep moving through GI problems. Maybe that's another big takeaway. I mean, I would have definitely closed hard, even though I had an absolutely just horrible GI day. I know I would have, because you can keep moving, but you got to like pivot, like you mentioned. So anyway, super fun conversation. I feel like I'm coming out of this feeling like a new person, let's go. I get to be a part of this, this sport and the way that I love to be a part of it, and the problem solving and that curious hat is back on, and it feels really good. So, no regrets. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think I hope our listeners get something out of this. I feel like I have, just like talking to you about it, going through your day, Katie, and also just remembering, like coming back to the things that are important to us out of these races, and also like where we need to be humble and put on our learning hats and like be students and continue to be students. And it doesn't matter how many years you've been doing this for, or how much you like think you mentally understand the sport, or how many podcasts you listen to and all the data in the world. Like, we are constantly learning and adjusting and evolving, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what keeps it interesting, And
we're all in this together. There's not one person out there that had it perfectly figured out, except maybe Riley Brady.
Yeah. Very true.
Tara's pretty close. Yeah. Anyway, but we are out there together, which is kind of fun, to think about when you're out there kind of suffering, like you're all collectively suffering and, trying to problem solve together, which is very cool. I love that. That's kind of like this.
Yeah.
The energy carries you, looking around, knowing that we're all a part of this really crazy sport. So anyway.
It is the best sport in the world, as Debo says. Like, it's funny, the 100K night when we went out to find our friend, the one that drank all the maple syrup on the course. And he was just like so having a great day. I think he finished like 17 hours and change, like not, maybe not his A goal, but like he was so determined to finish. He was so happy.
Yay.
And we were out at Table Mesa for a few hours at night, just kind of hanging out, waiting for him to come in. And just like seeing all the people that are problem solving, because when you see the elites come through, nobody stops. It's just like you blow through these aid stations, but these aid stations are like havens of safety and
Angels.
Also like can fix you and push you back out there. And there were so many people just sitting in chairs and they're not quitting. That's what really stuck with me, is that they're sitting there and they're like, okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, that's not working. I'm going to try this. Like, have you had a quesadilla? No, I'll try that. Like, just like all these things, because why not? And like, a couple women came in and they were so tired and they're like, they had glitter all over their faces, but it all kind of melted from the sun. So it was like sad glitter, And one of them was like, why am I doing this? And Billy like answered from the dark, and she probably couldn't even see him. He's like, because it's fun. And she just like kind of stared at him. She's like, huh, but it was so cute. And then I saw her go back out a little while later, and I was like, good for you,
Heck yes. What a warrior.
Yeah, I think if anything else, we should all spend some time at aid stations towards the end of races and remind ourselves, like, we are all just out there trying to accomplish this really stupid thing. And it's hard is always far. 100K is always far. Even though we race them like they're 50Ks now, it turns out 100K is really far, and just sort of being reminded of like the silliness of it, but also like the epicness of it. And the fact that no matter what our day looks like, doesn't really matter whether you finish in 7.5 hours or you finish in 17 hours. Like, everybody has this crazy experience. Everybody comes out of it like I don't want to say a different person, because that sounds like, okay, like it's not going to change your entire life, but like it could give you some perspective and some lessons on life. And that's like really cool,
I think that race for me for sure set the tone for the year, which is very cool. I wanted it. I needed that. And clearly, I think that every race has the potential to do that if you let it. And I guess maybe a challenge to our listeners is to like get after it, to like really lean into type 2 fun, because we've got a community of really incredible people out there that are out there transforming their lives. And maybe it is based on perspective or overcoming challenges, but it really does trickle down into daily life. And this sport gives you things that you couldn't gain otherwise. And just normal living, which I think is pretty special. So anyway.
That's a perfect note to end it on. Katie, that was a great conversation. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for going all in with your beautiful big heart. And you will have the day where everything comes together. It wasn't this day, but that's
okay. That would have kind of been a little bit weird if it was, right? Now looking back. Yeah. But the foot is fine, guys. So don't take a step for granted. Anyways, all right. Until next time. Thanks for joining the Trail Network podcast.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on today's episode of the Trail Network podcast. This was a super fun conversation, and I know I learned a lot. I hope you did as well. If you enjoyed the episode, we love hearing from you. It honestly keeps us going, makes us feel like there's people out there listening that care. Really makes a difference to us and always makes our day when we get a comment or some feedback from you guys. So please feel free to leave us a comment on the Spotify episode, which I'm told you can do now, which is super fancy, or you can send us a DM on Instagram at the Trail Network Pod. Give us a follow, give us a rating on Spotify. That also really helps and makes a difference as we are trying to build our little pod over here. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we will see you soon.